Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Middle-earth: Shadow of War running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now the game is currently running at 1080p with the lowest in-game graphical settings, and the performance that we're getting is not very great. Though it's not terrible either, because while we are getting a 30 FPS average for the most part, our 1% lows aren't too far off from that, which means that we're getting a pretty consistent experience overall. So while it's not a high FPS experience, it is at least going to be playable and consistent enough that you could pretty much get away with playing like this if you choose to play at 1080p. It just pretty much borders on the edge of playability a lot of the time, where sometimes you will have moments where there will be a small stutter here and there that kind of just ends up creating a small little issue here and there, but it's nothing major for the most part. Surprisingly, our RAM usage is actually not very high at all either. I mean, we're not even using up 10 gigabytes right now, which means that we have very good headroom here. We have more than enough RAM for other parts of the system, and the game itself is just not starved for any RAM at all. So it's the most ideal situation to be in. And this definitely feels like a PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era FPS level of experience. You know, back then a lot of games mostly were just targeting 30 FPS, and a lot of times you weren't even hitting that. So it's definitely passable, but I can understand if it's not enough for some people, and you can of course get a little bit better performance if you just drop the resolution down to 720p. And once we do that, we actually net a pretty noticeable performance increase here. Now our 1% lows are pretty much almost at 40, still slightly above that. We're in the high 30s now, but our averages are also pretty much at 50, which means we're getting a much smoother experience, and it really is a joy to play like this. I prefer to play like this than to play at the native 1080p resolution, especially because this is internal resolution scaling, so the UI and all of that pretty much stays to scale while the game itself is actually being rendered at a lower resolution. And I really appreciate when games do that, because it makes the game actually be able to be a lot more playable on low-end systems. Because when games just drop the UI resolution as well, all that ends up doing is just making it more painful to try to read anything or to try to look at anything. While when you just mess with the internal resolution but the UI stays to scale, it just makes the experience a lot better. You can kind of just ignore the lower quality textures more than you would a lower quality mini-map. So overall, I would say that the game is playable at both 1080p and 720p, but it really just depends on the type of FPS target that you're going for. Me personally, I would play this game at 720p over 1080p, but I can understand if you just want the 1080p resolution and you don't mind the 30 FPS average. You at least have the flexibility of choice here. But anyways, I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.